was only the 22nd of December, 1990, but 25-year-old Vaughn Taylor wasn't waiting around for Christmas. He sat beside a decorated tree, casually opening one wrapped present after another, while an aging VHS camera recorded the whole thing. Behind that camera was Edward Deli, a longtime friend who, for reasons known only to him, seemed determined to film every second of Vaughn's reactions.
You got a light flashing on the room, that.
I don't know.
Find out.
How am I supposed to find out?
And Lene. Come on, pass them.
The video was a little awkward, and the two would bicker quietly about whether the camera is even recording, as Vaughn tears through the gifts with little interest, barely acknowledging them at all. On the surface, it plays out like any awkward home video. Two friends exchanging presents and trying to act as natural as possible in front of a lens. But the unsettling part wasn't what they were doing, it was who these men really were. Before this tape was ever recorded, both men had already served time behind bars, Edward for arson and Taylor for aggravated burglary. Authorities had hoped that after their release, the two might finally choose a steadier path. But nothing could have prepared them for just how horribly misplaced that hope would prove to be. Almost as soon as Taylor walked free, he phoned a friend and announced that he and Edward were planning to head into the mountains to, as he put it, shoot some people. And with that, the pair slipped into the wilderness outside Oakley, Utah, beginning their expedition. As they moved deeper into the mountains, they came across a number of empty cabins. Most had been abandoned for the winter because of the harsh weather, and the two men took full advantage, breaking in, tearing through belongings, and staying as long as they wanted before moving on to the next. But not every cabin in the area was vacant. At the time, the Tide family, consisting of Father Rolf, his wife Kay, their daughters Lane and Trish, and their 76-year-old grandmother Beth Potts, were spending Christmas at their own cabin nearby. On the morning of December 22nd, they drove into Salt Lake City to finish up some last-minute holiday shopping, leaving the place empty for only a few hours, the same narrow window that Vaughn and Edward happened to wander by. Upon breaking into the cabin, they quickly realized the family had only stepped out temporarily. The tree was decorated, the lights were on, and unopened gifts sat neatly waiting beneath the branches. Seeing all of this, the men made a decision. This cabin, this family, would be where they'd finally follow through on the violence they'd been planning. And so the two hunkered down and waited for the family to arrive back home. What they did during those hours is mostly unknown, except for these brief few minutes in which Edward would pick up the family's VHS camera and record Vaughn as he ripped into Christmas presents. Knowing what these men were planning, the video takes on a completely different weight. Vaughn is sitting there, unwrapping presents meant for the very people he intends to murder, and it's made all the more chilling when you notice that Vaughn is carrying a gun. At one point, he says Lane's name as he reads it on the gift wrapping, the name of someone he has already decided won't leave that cabin alive. By far, the most chilling part is how unaffected both men seem. There's no hesitation, no fear, not even excitement, just a cold, empty calm. Unsurprisingly, things only get darker from here, as a few hours later, Beth, Kay, and Lene would pull into the driveway. The moment they stepped through the door, the men drew their weapons. Lene began praying out loud, pleading for her family's safety. Edward cut her off, telling her prayers didn't matter, as he only worshipped the devil. Moments later, the two men would end the lives of her mother and grandmother in cold blood, right where they stood, now leaving only 20-year-old Lene behind. She begged them to leave, knowing her father, Rolf, and her sister Trish were expected back at any moment. But before she could say more, she heard the growl of another snowmobile pulling into the driveway. Upon exiting their vehicle, both Rolf and Trish found themselves staring down the barrels of two guns. The men ordered Rolf to strip and hand over any cash he had. He pleaded that they took whatever they wanted in exchange for letting them live. But nothing seemed to matter. These two men weren't looking for an escape. They wanted to hurt people, and nothing was going to stop them. And so, Vaughn raised his gun and shot Rolf in the face. As he collapsed, Vaughn walked over and fired a final round into the back of his head. Having obliterated what, just an hour ago, was a happy breathing family, Vaughn and Edward drenched Ralph in the cabin in gasoline and set it alight before forcing the two remaining daughters onto the snowmobiles and disappearing down the hill toward a nearby road. However, they weren't entirely alone. As they descended the mountain, the group noticed someone waving them down, a man standing in the snow, calling out to them. It was Randy Zorn, the girl's uncle. He had recognized his nieces and tried to flag them down. However, realizing that had they acknowledged their relationship, it would certainly get him killed, the girls pretended not to recognize the man and told the kidnappers they had no idea who he was. Randy could tell something was wrong. The girls' behavior didn't make sense. Worried about their safety, he followed them down the mountain, where Vaughn and Edward were now piling into the family's car. Randy waved again, shouting for them to stop, even running after the vehicle as it pulled away. But once more, the girls acted as though he was a stranger, placing their uncle's safety above their only chance of being saved. Confused by the strange interaction and the urgency he sensed from the girls, Randy began to fear that something terrible had happened back at the family cabin. That fear was confirmed moments later when he heard another snowmobile screaming down the mountain. On it was a barely clothed Rolf. Despite being shot twice in the head, set on fire, and swollen almost beyond recognition, he was somehow still alive and had managed to ride down the mountain for help. There, through broken breath, he managed to tell Randy, "I've been shot, my wife has been killed, my daughters have been kidnapped." Those words triggered the response that ultimately saved the girls. Police moved fast, locating the kidnapper's car moments before it veered off the road, rolling several times before crashing into a ravine. Miraculously, everyone survived the wreck. After a brief exchange of gunfire, Vaughn and Edward surrendered, and their night of violence and the girls' nightmare was finally over. When the dust settled, Edward was sentenced to life in prison, while Vaughn, the man captured on tape casually opening the family's gifts, received the death penalty, with both men reportedly being frozen when Rolf walked into court to testify against them. Against all odds, Rolf recovered fully. His survival stands as the one hopeful note in a story filled with unimaginable loss. But the devastation left behind by those two men, and the haunting footage recorded just hours before the attack, make this case one of the darkest preserved videos on YouTube. Driving often feels like one of the most routine parts of life, but in a single instant, it can turn into something unimaginable. 1 second, everything is normal. The next, you're caught in a nightmare you never saw coming. That's part of why dashcam footage has become so popular in the horror community. These short clips capture sudden accidents, crimes, and bizarre encounters that no one could have predicted. But back in late 2019, one particular recording broke through the noise. It wasn't only what the camera showed that shocked people, it was the strange questions the clip left behind. On December 30th, 2019, a driver was heading down California's Highway 1 near San Francisco. The road is famous for its breathtaking ocean views, winding high above the cliffs with the Pacific stretched endlessly below. But for this driver, the view would quickly be overshadowed by something terrifying.
911, what's your emergency?
That afternoon, the driver called the police, claiming they had just seen a car plunge off the cliffside into the water hundreds of feet below. The sight was so sudden, so unreal, that they questioned whether they had really witnessed it at all. Luckily, their dash cam had been recording the whole time. The video left no doubt. It clearly showed a vehicle veering straight over the edge. The recording ended just as the car went airborne, seconds before what would have been a fatal drop into the waves and jagged rocks beneath. Most unsettling of all, the car never appeared to slow down, as if the brakes had never been touched. Emergency crews rushed to the scene within minutes. They quickly found tire tracks leading straight off the cliff, confirming something had gone over. But when they scanned the water below, the expected wreckage was nowhere to be found. Rescue boats combed the area, hoping to find signs of life, but there was nothing. No driver, no debris, not even the vehicle itself. Days passed, then weeks. Only a few small pieces of car parts ever surfaced, none of which could be tied to the make and model seen in the video. Stranger still, no missing person reports matched the vehicle. And this wasn't just any car. The footage had captured what looked to be a green 2009 Lexus SUV, an uncommon vehicle, hard to miss. Yet even as the clip spread across news outlets and social media, no one recognized the car, and no families came forward with reports of a missing loved one who owned one. Eventually, the official search was called off. Authorities admitted they couldn't prove that the vehicle was still in the area, or that it had ever truly gone over the edge at all. To many, it was as if the car had simply vanished into thin air the moment the camera cut off. The internet quickly latched onto the mystery. Explanations ranged from wild supernatural theories to ideas about the vehicle slipping into the water at just the right angle to disappear completely. Some even speculated that the video itself had been faked with CGI, but experts who examined the clip found nothing to support that claim. The footage was genuine, which only deepened the puzzle. Months passed, and the clip began to fade from memory. But on April 29th, 2020, almost exactly 5 months later, everything changed. That morning, swimmers at Montara State Beach, not far from the crash site, spotted something floating offshore. When it was brought to land, authorities discovered it was a body. The victim was identified as Tracy Sinclair, a local woman who had gone missing around the same time the video was filmed. Investigators then uncovered another crucial detail. Tracy owned a dark green 2009 Lexus SUV, the very same model that had been seen going over the cliff. Finally, the mystery of who had been inside the car had an answer. But even with this discovery, major questions remained. Why wasn't Tracy linked to the case earlier, despite her disappearance matching so perfectly? Why did her vehicle appear to speed off the cliff without braking? Many now believe it was an intentional act, though this has never been proven. And perhaps the strangest question of all, what happened to the SUV? To this day, Tracy's Lexus has never been recovered. No wreck, no debris, not even a trace of the car itself has been found. For many online, that detail keeps the mystery alive. For Tracy's family, however, the case is less about unanswered questions and more about closure. While the circumstances remain eerie, they can at least lay her memory to rest after months of not knowing.